When I was a student in school many years ago, I had no interest in history. My grades in history classes were always extremely low, so this idea of studying history is not something that I gravitated to easily. But I found that when you begin to read the New Testament against the backdrop of history, it comes alive. You're able to see the places, you're able to hear the sounds, smell the smells, touch the reality of what's going on. You see, when God acts, He doesn't act outside of history, but He comes into history. So for us to understand what's going on in the Bible and then how it applies to our life, we need to take a look at how God was acting in that day, in their history, so then we can move forward and think about how God is acting in our day, in our history. The study of history can be boring if all we're doing is looking at dates and names and places, but there's much, much more to it. It's about touching lives. It's about people going through their lives day by day, interacting with politics and political structures, interacting with religion and worship, interacting with social systems. All that's part of the history then and now as well. So we have to understand that God does His great work in the middle of human history. We study history because this is the field in which He's playing, and that same history we're involved in. So I think we can find ourselves then in the story if we think historically. Sometimes we disconnect the gospel story from history, and then it seems like it's out there and it's a religious thing and it doesn't have anything to do with our daily lives, but it does. It gets right down into the nitty-gritty of what's happening today, whether it's in our family or whether it's in our nation. History is all important. We're part of a living history. We are heirs of history. And so to understand the gospel well, we have to understand that it's all about God acting in history. There's theology in the middle of all this. Jesus came into this world. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. That's a historical act. Jesus was born in a city called Bethlehem. That place and that history extremely important because we know that, for example, that Bethlehem was the place where God said the king would be born. We know that. And so it's in the middle of that history, even starting in Bethlehem, that we see God's plan being unfolded, both then and today.